Welcome to Hold the Mic, the show so controversial they asked us to put a trigger warning on it. Hosted by Ryan Shead and Ian Sherman. Join them as they tackle hard conversations surrounding politics and social justice issues every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hold the Mic is also downloadable on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Trigger warning. This podcast discusses topics that may be distressing to some listeners, including mental health, abortion, racism, and other potentially distressing issues. If you are sensitive to these subjects, please proceed with caution. To Hold the Mic, we have a special guest with us today from Frontline Reproductive Freedom Action, a 501c4 advocacy organization whose mission is to galvanize Gen Z voters around the stakes of reproduction freedom in the 2024 election. From now until Election Day, they will be collaborating with creators like myself on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube to produce content that raises the salience of this issue with young voters across the country, register voters, and ultimately turn out the vote for reproduction freedoms in November. Please welcome Miss Sarah Higginbotham with FRFA leading the hashtag #VoteRepro movement.
Now you know we have grown up. What up,
We have
Sarah?
grown up.
Look at this.
Hi.
We got dope people doing dope shit
Yes.
in the world.
Yes.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I already said this once, but it's so cool to be here with two dudes.
I know. It's you wouldn't normally see this, two guys talking about abortion rights, but here we are. It's
We
become
are allies. All
yes,
through and through.
but more importantly, it's become such a focal point of the federal election, but also we're going to talk about state level stuff here too. So it's just so important that I'm glad we can lend our platform to you today and get some of this information out. So thanks for joining us. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start with, of course, I think what kicked all of this off, which was since Roe v. Wade was overturned, 14 states have banned abortion, making it illegal for an estimated 60 million women in the United States. So that's one of the reasons we're here. And in my opinion, you're talking about men doing this and having this conversation. I think silence is compliance. And, I think I speak for Ian and I both that we're not okay with that. So
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah. So let's get into it. What was the impact of the Dobbs decision, and how is reproductive freedom at stake in this November election? Because I think that's probably the most important thing that we're looking at in the next 30 days.
Yeah, I mean, that is like no small question, but it's the right question. You said it already, right? Like a big piece of it, right? Dobbs, for those of us that were, what, did I lose you guys?
No, you're here.
You're front and center, girl. You don't need to see my face.
Oh, okay.
She's like, why is it just my face?
This is what it looks like when a man takes a step back and gives you the front and center. That's
that's
reality.
funny.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that was funny.
Girl, looked like she just showed up at the Diddy Freakout.
So
What's going on?
We rolling? You want to go?
now all I have is that's the baby oil song. Oh God.
But yeah,
so let's go back to what was the impact of the Dobbs decision, and what are we really looking at this November election? Yeah. What's at stake?
Yeah. Well, spoiler, you said a big piece of it, right? Which is that there was an immediate impact that for those of us who have been paying attention and who were sounding the alarm for the years before, that we knew would happen. There were states that had trigger bans. There were states with antiquated criminalization laws and abortion bans, like in Arizona, where you are, Ryan. And it removed, as we know, sort of what we would call the floor or the baseline, and allowed states to go ahead and do whatever they wanted. And we'd already seen indications of what would happen. Georgia passed its 6-week ban along with a few others before Dobbs happened. So since then, not only has the policy landscape gotten extremely hostile and more extreme, like more criminalization, but of course, as we're hearing, thank goodness for it, we're hearing more and more about, and the election is surfacing in this really positive way, not just for this moment, but for the movement, the care for women and people, pregnant people who need it, has just deteriorated. We've seen infant mortality rates go up in places like Texas. Maternal health, we were already ranked one of the lowest in the developing world already pre-Dobbs, pre the overturning of Roe, and it's just gotten worse. And then, of course, I think it was Roberts, in his opinion, if I'm remembering in the moment, who indicated that this could open the door to worse outcomes for other issues or related issues, right?
Yep.
LGBTQ rights. It could open the door for banning contraception or regulating IUDs or other IVF. So
even the loving passing of that law.
But,
yep.
And I believe we've seen it in a few states where they're literally going after contraceptives, and they've been successful, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, right. Because, and you'll probably hear me say this more than once, right? Like, that's the point. The point is control.
Yep.
Chipping away at this step by step.
Yeah, right. So you asked what's at stake this election. So much. I think most people listening probably already know, who listen to your show, right? We have a presidential that couldn't be more existential for our democracy, and lots of other related issues that all affect families. And if you're using sort of a reproductive justice lens, all of the things matter. Like, can you feed your family? Can you keep a job? Can you house your family? Can you give them health care? And then, of course, when it comes to reproductive freedom, a massive difference. It was, Trump was merely an instrument of what had been a many decades long march for the anti-extremists to implement a very strategic and thorough strategy. And he was the instrument that, of course, appointed 3 judges that ended up overturning Dobbs. And so he's hand in glove working with them. What has been somewhat fascinating to see, as a side note, is their and wonderful for the movement, is that it's becoming so clear that the public, the American voters and the public, are in support of reproductive freedom. And so to watch the Republican Party kind of backpedal throughout all of this. And
it's toxic for the Republican Party. It's completely toxic.
And
I mean, you can't even touch it. I mean, he really, it's when you're watching the president's, wife, Melania, be best the situation about, what was going on here. It's laughable, because you understand what's happening right now, where they're really trying to now kind of hijack the messaging.
And if they're bringing Melania in, that they're serious, because she charges extra for that stuff.
You should see that. It might be an AI Melania. I'm telling you right now, man. That shadowing, that black and white video, it was very dramatic.
It's really interesting. I think what we're seeing is the Republican Party finally realized that, they were playing hot potato with a grenade, and they didn't want to have that go off in their hands. So they're trying to toss it off as fast as they can, but I don't think it's working.
Yeah.
The problem.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was just going to say, the problem is that Trump has himself come out and proudly said that he was the reason that these got kicked back to the states, right? So I think that that's a good pivot point to talk about where I'm at, which is Arizona. There's been a lot going on here, and Arizona's kind of not as much as maybe Georgia and other states, but we have been the focus of it because of that Civil War law that we, thank God, got rid of. Thankfully, 2 Republicans at the state legislature did the right thing and jumped over to with the Democrats. So very thankful for that.
This was a law that was before you guys were a state.
Yeah, it was literally before we were a state.
That's insane.
That's what they were worried about. That's what they were worried about back then.
Yeah.
So it was just like, it was very disheartening to watch go down.
Hey, Ryan, that's what they were worried about today.
Yeah, I guess that concern's never gone away.
Let that sink in,
Well, so here in Arizona, I have a lot I can say about it, but I'd rather hear from you. So what's the state of reproduction freedom here in Arizona? We have a proposition up on our ballot here coming up.
Yeah. Well, you should. I'll say a little bit, and I'll try to connect it to what's happening nationally as well. But you should talk about it. You're on the ground there. Part of the whole premise, why we call it Frontline Repro Freedom Action, is that my co-founders and I come from a background initially working in the states, like doing the state work and having to interact with sometimes clumsy national organizations. No offense, right? Like well-intentioned with the national efforts. I think you've been involved in politics in Arizona. And then we started working nationally and regionally. So we deeply believe in like the experts that are on the ground, the people who are living it, the people who are doing the advocacy work. Okay, so one of the most exciting things that's happening this year, and it's all connected to even what we were talking about before, are the ballot measures, right? So what's already happened to date is that in red states, Kentucky, Ohio, and Kansas, deep red states, voters had an opportunity to either vote down, like in Kentucky, a bad proposal, or to protect abortion into law, which I'm sure you know, those passed, right? Yeah. So in the places where we can do direct democracy, the voters have already sent like a message loud and clear. And so it was so funny in the debate with Trump where he was talking about it, and we can talk about the states' right argument too, which is crazy. He was talking about let the voters decide. I'm like, the voters have decided, buddy. Like it's 3-0, right?
Yeah.
And so
everybody wanted this. Nobody wanted this.
Get off. So exciting. And as someone who, like myself, I have parents who have been lifelong Republicans who are disenchanted with what's happening now. But I think especially my relationship with my mom in watching this happen is just like proving, as I thought for a long time, and some of us, that this is not. It is a politicized issue, but it is inherently not a political issue, that most people are with us on this. So in Arizona, what's so exciting and so impressive, because they also did it in like the hottest part of your summer, like they worked all the way up to the deadline. They collected a record number of signatures to get this thing on the ballot. I think more than any has in the past.
Yep. They were everywhere. They were in parking lots. They were everywhere. They were hitting people as soon as they got out of their car, like, hey, we need you to sign this.
I love it.
I already signed it.
Yeah, and door knocking, like all of the things. So once, when the court upheld the 1864 law, as you know, you were referring to, the legislature came back and worked to repeal it. 2 Republicans crossed over to help. It was 2, right?
I believe it was 2.
It was 2. I just looked it up. Yeah, crossed over to help get that done. So what's in place now is a 15-week ban with no exceptions for rape or incest. And what is on the ballot will expand access to care up to 24 weeks, along with some other pieces. And, there's other political dynamics that play into that. Like it's also a big turnout. It's going to help bring people. I mean, that's sort of the macro other thing that's happening, right? Like people care about this issue. And so it's going to help bring people in to vote and hopefully vote up and down, the ballot. So that's the other piece. And of course, Arizona, you don't need me to say, is, huge. It could turn the presidential election.
Swing state.
Absolutely.
It could turn the Senate. It could decide the presidential election.
And I think, I really hope there are enough people here in this state that understand. I wrote a love letter to MAGA a couple of days ago, and I said, I don't hate you people. Like, I'm just disappointed in you as fellow Americans that you're lifting this dude up over extremely qualified, educated women. You'd rather put this dude back in the White House who's a proven, felon and all the other things.
Sexual harasser.
Yeah, the list goes, business fraud, multiple. It's like, and he wasn't even good president. He didn't even deliver on anything he said the first time. And he's repeating the same things he said that he would deliver on 8 years ago. Right. So it's like, and then they keep saying, well, why hasn't Kamala delivered on anything? She's vice president. Because she's vice president. How come your dude didn't do anything when he was actually president?
Better question. Tim and JD, what are you going to do? What kind of policies are you going to pass while you're vice president? What are we doing here? You got to have the common sense. It's not there.
So one of the reasons that I'm sticking with the Democrats this election is we have Proposition 139 up here in Arizona, which is to guarantee women abortion access. It would put it into our Constitution. And once that happens, it would need to be a 3/4 vote at the state level. And let me promise you that will not happen. So this is a big deal. The Republicans have held the state level legislature for decades. Even though we have Katie Hobbs as our governor and Chris Mays as our AG, both Democrats, we still have Republicans running, all the other levels basically. And that's what made these abortion fights so critical. And we were all up in arms because we really didn't know what was going to happen because of who's controlled the state level. So like we said, whether it was two or a few more, there were definitely a few Republicans that crossed the aisle to get this done. And I'm just really hopeful that there's going to be enough people in the voting booths to put this in the Constitution. So at least the women here in Arizona, like my daughter, won't have to worry about it.
And my question is, how are we to face when we see that the Republican Party is trying to take this into a legal action of, like, Ohio, for example, the voters passed it, they went for it, but then the Republicans that are in power are trying to now put it actually through the legal system and then question it. So there's a part where it feels like the goalpost keeps on moving away from us, even when we do show up. How do we find kind of like the morale? Like what do you expect from us men to be there for our partners, for our family, for our sisters, our cousins, everybody? How would you like to see us really step up?
Yeah. I think I shared with Ryan the first time we talked, but I noticed a couple of weeks ago when it happened, and now I'm blanking on exactly what it was, but basically I had such a visceral reaction that it was an instance where it was a guy speaking up on very clearly about why he cares about reproductive freedom, why he cares about access to abortion. And it just like caught me off guard, and I got like weirdly emotional. And it turns out that like element of surprise, because it's so unexpected and it's so rare, is really, really powerful. That sort of allyship. So one, it's very powerful and meaningful to stand up and sort of counter the actual forces, right? They're doing what the extremists are doing on it is dehumanizing, right? Like, it's extremely gutting. It's meant to make you feel helpless. It's meant to make you feel powerless. It's meant to control really kind of the core direction of your life and all this other stuff and your livelihood. And so I think anytime someone, especially a group that has largely been silent, stands up and stands with you, it's the antidote to those feelings, right? It's like hopeful and powerful. So I just think it's deeply powerful. So I would say, like, one, talk about it, right? I think this is so simple, but we just don't talk about it, right? Like how many, my dad, everyone who's a daughter who's had a dad in their lives growing up, at some point the dad drove him to the grocery store and bought him tampons, right? Or they did the thing. Like, we don't talk about it. So one, it's just in that bucket of like stuff that's not our problem. So one, I think, like, talk about it and be like unashamed to talk about it. Two, it's, as you all know, it's your issue too. It's men's issue too, right? So there's an accountability and a responsibility that I think needs to be acknowledged to start to like change the narrative around it and start to make men and boys feel more comfortable talking about it.
No, I agree. And something that Ian and I actually have done before, we've actually talked about it on our podcast and told some stories. And I think that it's kind of important for people hearing this episode to hear, two guys kind of giving our side of why we're standing up and what's fueling us to do this. I know that your organization, we're all targeting Gen Z, because we're really focused on the younger generations and everything. But this is really something that hits every generation. I know almost every family has a story of some sort related to this.
What did Vance, not to cut you off, but what did Vance just say about like women over 50 don't need to worry about abortion? Did you hear that?
No, I like.
You want to know a demographic not to piss off? Women over 50.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They got time. They got time on their hands, and they'll write postcards. They'll.
Carry on.
Yep. Nope. Totally fair.
But with the match,
I've got a couple that I'll share, but I think what you all were just talking about really pivots well into, Ian and his experience. So, brother, go ahead and tell folks kind of what you experienced.
Yeah. We had a situation, and I think about this with a lot of the women right now who are being turned away. that it's not a choice that they wanted to make. They wanted to have a child. This is not because they really try to demonize the whole thing and the narrative. In our situation, we had a miscarriage, and it was the first thought that I had was that women have it tough from the beginning, in the womb. Y'all, it's just life is hard as fuck on women. I had a little girl. She did not make it because of Turner syndrome, which is what I learned about during this whole process. And I was excited. I wanted to be a girl dad. That's what I wanted to be. And and my wife and I, actually went hiking upstate New York. And I remember the moment that my wife just did a quick stop, and she just said, "That was weird." And I remember her just grabbing her stomach as a natural reaction. And and it lives with me because I saw something change in that moment. And maybe it's the hormones immediately. Her body changed instantly. And not for the worst. It was just like she knew something happened. And we got back in town, and I immediately had to get back to work, and I had to travel outside of the city about 2 hours. And I just thought, okay, she's gonna go to a checkup. I'm gonna go do my thing. It's just a checkup, just a regular checkup, nothing major. And I got a phone call, and it was the worst phone call possible. My wife is in tears. She's alone. No heartbeat. And she works in medical, and she already knows what the situation is. The nurse there, who's doing the ultrasound, is trying to not really tell her, but like get the doctor in and get all the things ready to go for that conversation. And my wife is in full panic mode, knowing there's no heartbeat. And immediately she told me, and I dropped everything I was doing, and I was right back home. And so much that my boss was just like, "Oh, okay, so you're at the house," and I go, "I left. I left. This is the situation. Like, I need to be with my wife." And fully understood. And I was just with her. And we were like, okay, well, in this situation, and she works for the hospitals here, they're like, well, we're going to have to schedule a DNC. And for everybody, especially you men, that's an abortion. Everything I'm talking about is an abortion. So when they try to hijack the conversation and say, well, that's something different. No, that's an abortion. And I want everybody to have it on their minds. This is what they're doing to our sisters, our wives, our daughters, our nieces. So when I have a conversation like this with you and you tell me you're going to raise your daughter right, this is what I'm talking about. This is the moment that you don't control. There's zero anything. And this is complete healthcare. And what pisses me off the most is that the system took somebody that is in the medical field and sent them to some establishment, clinic, that was like, it felt like it was in a dark alley in the back of nowhere in Brooklyn, and all walks of life were there. Young girls, middle-aged, and everybody has their own story, and none of it mattered because they were there for their own reasons. And if you don't have that kind of empathy for somebody who is there, and this is also within COVID, so and of course men can't walk in with them, so you have to leave them, walk them to the door, and let them go in. And my wife said it was the worst experience of her life. To rewind a little bit on that, they scheduled it where she had to live with this dead fetus in her for about a week and some change. And the thing that will live rent free with me, that has gotten me engaged in this, is when my wife told me that, get this out of me, I feel like it's poisoning me. And I can never get that thought out of my head, that she had to sit here throughout this entire process and feel that way. And the moment that we did get to now, the DNC, the abortion, we got protested against. And people walked up to me with their flyers and all these things. And they told me that there's another way, is what they told me. And I looked at them, and I clearly am a talker. Clearly I'm there to try to communicate, try to see the other side, to reach across the aisle. And all I wanted was blood. I couldn't talk. I couldn't say anything. I felt helpless. I couldn't be with her. And I want to reach out to all the men who are in the situation where, you know, when there's an abortion, there are two people who do lose something, but we just physically don't go through the shock of it. And there's a part where I want to reach out to all the men and say, like, I understand and I see you. And all we can do is be the backbone and try to be that foundation for the ones we care for, whoever that is, our daughters, our moms, our wives, our sisters, everyone. And the thing that bothers me the most is I thought to myself, I'm in New York, one of the most liberal places ever. And here I'm getting protested against. So what is somebody getting in another small town in a red state where it's a red mayor, red whatever? And I hate the color scheme. This is not Bloods and Crips. But looking at it and I think about it and I go, I'm in a very liberal place and they picked me. Now, granted, we got a bundle of joy that came afterwards. You know, the universe had a plan. I never got the girl. And matter of fact, we're pregnant with another child and we have two. So it'll be two total. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's because we had the healthcare. And we had the science and we had the know-how to get it done. And I just feel for all the women who are in the situation where they have to go back to their car and they have to get worse before someone will see them.
Get worse or die.
Oh, yeah.
Or die.
Some of them are dying.
And the worst part is that those people who are dying are the ones who literally want to have the kids. So I can't agree or I can't even enjoy a conversation with anybody who tells me they're pro-life, but will put somebody through that.
Yeah.
So that's my story. Thank you. Welcome to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Great TED Talk.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm so sorry for your loss and for the parts of that you had to go through that were painful. And the storytelling piece, the personal piece is deeply powerful on so many levels. It means a lot.
This is why we fight.
But I like the positive at the end too. You know, you guys have a family. Your family is growing, so it wasn't. You know, thankfully, it wasn't. You know, an end all be all.
Right.
Your only opportunity. You know, healthcare. This is healthcare. You know, there, like you said, the part that always hits me because I've heard that story 4 or 5 times now, and every time I hear it, the part that hits me is your wife telling you that she felt like it was poisoning her.
Yeah.
And then you know, we just got done talking, I think it was last week, about a woman who died because they left the fetus in there and it literally poisoned her to death.
That's right.
So to me, hearing those stories, and I'm like, holy shit, like Ian's wife could literally feel that happening. Like it was starting to happen with her. Absolutely. And, you know, so it's just very eye-opening when you hear stories and you're able to connect those dots to other people's stories. You're like, holy shit. Like it's a lot. And for me, I have 2 stories. My first one was I was 19 and I had a friend that, you know, she meant a lot to me at the time. And she came to me and she already had 2 kids. And she's like, I can't do this anymore. You know, she was in a bad relationship and, you know, there were her reasons. And, you know, she asked me to take her, said she didn't have anybody else. So I took her and then I took care of her for like 2 days after. And just witnessing how it was on her and being that young, you know, being only 19, it was just very eye-opening and it has stuck with me my entire life because it's just, if you've never seen a woman go through that, there's so many things that she is going through that us men don't have to. Right. Like Ian said,
last place that you would want, regardless of whether that decision is very heavy for someone or just so clearly the right decision, whatever the surroundings, like to what you're saying, it's like, that is the last moment that you would want to be disempowered, made to feel helpless, not be able to get the care, make the right decision for you, or to have the government tell you what
you can't.
Yeah. I don't need Matt Gaetz' fucking smirking ass face telling me what I can do and not do with my family.
Is one of the most deeply personal, like,
absolutely.
If you choose to have a child, if you get pregnant, however it happens, like those are deeply personal things that most of the time we don't talk about anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, only reason I tell the story is because she's not with us anymore, but it's just, like I said, I carry that one with me. And the other one I tell is a little more, I think, positive, hopefully. You know, my wife, when we got pregnant the first time, we weren't married yet. So like when it happened and, you know, she's like, well, I'm pregnant. It was the follow-up was, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And I always said the fact that she used the word we in that sentence of letting me be a part of the conversation. We weren't married. She didn't owe me anything. And at the end of the day, it was her decision. That's the reality.
And thank goodness she felt safe enough to tell you.
Yep, to tell me and again, allow me to be a part of that decision process. And I say that because my wife and I are religious, and you wouldn't know it watching my platform. You wouldn't know it watching my videos, but we're religious. And for us, that played a part in our decision not to. And also, we did want to start a family. So it was a very quick conversation, and we were both on the same page, thankfully. Which I know that's not going to be the case for everybody. One might want, one might not. So it's just one of those things where, as men, I know, as Ian said, yeah, we both lose something technically, but you can't compare the loss that we feel as men. We have an emotional connection. It's an emotional loss. Women, they get two. They get an emotional loss, but then there's also a loss they feel in their actual body.
That's right.
And that's something that no man is ever going to fully understand. And because of that fact, because no man can ever fully understand that, is why I think we always need to defer to women when it comes to these type of decisions and legislation, because it's really difficult to legislate something that you don't fully understand. And the first thing that we men need to do is admit that we don't understand that, and we never will. Therefore, here's our microphone. Tell us what we need to do.
Yeah. And the couldn't agree more. I mean, I wish I could, I should send you guys the clip of it was a couple of years ago. It was right after Georgia did the 6-week ban before Dobbs, where the lawmaker was like inaccurately, which has happened, I'm sure, in dozens of states now, inaccurately describing how women ovulate and what a period is. And it was just like, in the process of doing all of it, it was just like every woman was just like,
I imagine you just like screaming at your screen going, that's not how that works.
And also, yet so unsurprising, right?
Yeah.
And both sides of that apply, right? For the women in the circumstances where it's a wanted pregnancy or even the right decision, but still difficult, and there's a sadness to be felt. There's also the flip that I think you can never understand unless that you can sympathize with, but you can't fully understand, which is the empowering piece of it, right? The ability to dictate, make decisions that are best for you based on your circumstances, and the relief to be able to make that decision. And in the moment we're in, for so many women, and you mentioned one of the women in your stories was a mother. A huge percentage of the people that access abortion and need abortion care already have children.
Yeah.
But the ability in this moment to not be able to make those decisions is something that I'm not sure anyone, unless you've experienced it, can really fully understand.
I agree. And that pivots us to, we want to hear from you on, it's become obvious that this fight, this reproductive freedom fight, is about more than just abortion. So I was hoping you could kind of educate us a little on what other rights are under threat because Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Yeah. So I think, one, you have to understand what the end game is and what this is about. And at the end of the day, right, the anti-choice extremists are about control. It's about misogyny. It's about sexism. It's about racism. It's about classism. When you think about the people that are most impacted once these policies take place, you start to get that lens. And when you look back, and there's been a lot of good research on it to sort of pull it out to make it more obvious, we understand what they've been doing. You can see what the end game is and where they're going. And before I will jump into sort of the other pieces, but I'll just add this, which is like, what's so important as we keep going. And I do think this is an important pivotal maybe shift in how things are, for the movement as we go forward, but we have to listen to women and to frontline advocates and people on the ground doing the work when they say something, right? Like, we've been called hysterical so many times over and over again. Oh, they're never going to repeal Roe. Like, I can't tell you how many times people who were in the movement at the time were told,
even the Supreme Court justices said it when they were
never going to be. You're crazy.
Yeah, it's
You're
settled
crazy.
case law.
Yeah, they said it in Arizona when the lawmaker championed, getting 1864 off the books. They were like, that's never going to happen. It's settled, right? So that's one. So understanding the end game, which is everything, it's the whole kit and caboodle, right? So it's contraception that's already starting to happen. We've been fighting for access to contraception forever, right? That's still an issue. In some places you can't get it. So that's one. The other, which has gotten a lot more attention, is IVF, of course,
right.
Which luckily, the GOP got their, sort of bitch slapped about it.
They did.
What bad politics it was. Again, so out of step with the public.
They did not want Project 2025 to come out. And it's stuck now. The stink is on them.
Surrogacy, etc. Something really expensive affects a small percentage, but that's part of how do you build power? You've got to think about all the issues it affects. And then Project 2025.
Yeah.
This is the point. They're telling us, and yet people are still saying it's crazy. Yeah. They want to monitor.
You literally have an Excel sheet of what they're planning on doing.
They want to monitor pregnancies. Yeah. Why? Yeah. Well, we saw it. Criminalization, the first state to do it recently, to put a new law in the books, I think was Texas, pre the overturning of Roe. Criminalization. Texas has now made it, anyone can do it. It's like a vigilante justice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is not
Bounty
just
hunters.
It's exactly what it is, by the way. It's exactly vigilante.
Is so clear, but it's also cruel, right?
Yes.
There's this cruelty piece to it. So everything's on the table. And then I would just connect it to those other issues, justice issues, right? This affects the access to abortion, affects trans people, it affects the LGBT community. It doesn't just affect women. It also gets into related issues, childcare, paid family leave, all of the things that we know go along with forced pregnancy, which is what this is. So it is interconnected to so much. It's interconnected, to individuals' livelihoods and the way they build their families and their deepest and most personal decisions. And it's interconnected on what that means for business, for society as a whole, for the future, our future in this country, sort of on the macro level.
And I just want to throw in there, a nice little plug. That's one of the reasons I'm voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because when Tim Walz was governor, one of the things he did was he made school lunches free for all kids in his state.
That's right.
And I think that those are the type of things that if you want to call yourself pro-life, that's the type of legislation that we need to start implementing.
That's we've said it, but maybe it's worth saying out loud. And I hear it all the time. But if this were really about protecting children, then we would have access to childcare. We would make sure that every child has health insurance. We would make sure that children don't go hungry at school. We would make sure that parents could stay home and care. All of the things we know, right?
Early learning, everything would all be there.
Hypocrisy abounds. I'm not sure there's another issue where the hypocrisy is so thick.
It's interesting because we keep our kids home. And that's one of the things that my wife and I talk about all the time, because we definitely question, should we send them to in-person school? But then, we do it through the state. It's all virtual. They have class every day. They still have school. It's just they don't go to a school.
I mean, homeschool is so different now versus when
it's not I don't even like calling it homeschool. It's not the homeschool we think of. It's virtual. Right. It's virtual school.
I don't see you teaching math. I'm just saying.
Well, but if you wanted to.
I mean, no, I mean,
it's not you at the board. You're not like, all right.
No, I have the book with all the answers, thank God. But it's just things are changing a little bit, and that's one of the things my wife and I talk about. The two biggest things that keep us going down this road is, number one, my kids don't know what an active shooter drill is, and I don't have to worry about that, every day they walk out of the door. But the second is that we are raising our kids. We're not sending them to daycare. We're not sending them to school for, 6-8 hours a day. We are raising our children. Everything our children are doing, we know what's going on. We know what's going on with their school because we have to. We have to be engaged. We do all their extracurricular stuff. And it's just, we're blessed that we're able to do that. I wish every family had that freedom that we do. But it, again, just because we have that freedom, I guess because we didn't always have it, it's easy for us to look back and be like, let's work on this so other people have these same things, because this is pretty nice. It's pretty nice not, being able to stay home and put my kids to bed every night and know that they're safe, and I don't have to send them to a school where they have to climb under their desk and, put chairs up against the door and pray somebody doesn't, break in during, math class. It's just,
that's infuriating.
We keep talking about pro-life, but we have women dying because of fetuses that are left inside of them too long, because doctors are practicing medicine under constant fear of litigation from the right wing.
Right.
So they're too afraid to pull the trigger and literally will sit there and watch a fucking woman die because they're too worried somebody might sue them. That is completely unacceptable for our country. And that's why when you go in the voting booth, I try not to tell people who to vote for. I plug Kamala and Tim Walz and tell you why, but go into the voting booth informed. This stuff matters. My 10-year-old daughter has less rights today than the day she was born. Sarah has less rights than the day she was born.
Right.
This is just cuckoo. I don't even know how this is still a discussion. And then that leads us into the next question, because there's a lot of reasons I think people have for, being pro-life, as they call themselves. But one of the biggest tools that I personally see used is God and religion as the reason to remove a woman's right. So my question, because this is something that you do every day, this is your sandbox. What's your response to those folks that you run into that, use their religion and God as the backbone of their argument?
Yeah. Well, first, I think there's sort of two parts. One is, how do you have a conversation, which I think, Ian, you were saying earlier, you want to listen, you want to hear both sides. I'm also one of those people. I think it's partially the way I grew up. I had parents who ended up being a different political stripe of me, but we shared core values. And especially right now in today's moment in democracy, I feel like so much of the country feels politically homeless. Not everyone is oriented that way. I happen to be. Right. So I think there's how do you have a conversation with someone that you think might be able to connect in some way? And I think I was just listening to an interview with some of the canvassers and folks in Arizona, actually, who had been on the doors. And so on that part, I think there's just a shared humanity. There's also so much misinformation. So the instance, that's why they're more extreme cases. They don't happen all the time. But the instances of when you need a DNC because your fetus is no longer viable, et cetera. Right. So I think that's a conversation, how do you have a human conversation about it? And, some of those folks in Arizona were saying once we connected, they hadn't realized that was part of what was in the law. So I think that's part of it. And what we already know is that 8 in 10 Americans are with us on this issue, 9 in 10 in Arizona, actually. So there's that part. But then the other part of it is...
But Sarah, is there anything else in America that many constituents agree?
I worked on a lot of issues. I also worked on gun violence for Moms Demand Action and Everytown for Gun Safety. And at the time, this was a few years ago, universal background checks, we hadn't actually pulled on the issue very strategically until the last decade or so. And background checks was 80%. I can't remember, it was 78 or 84%, something in there, with Republicans, criminal universal background checks. So no, those numbers were insane. And that's part of why you've seen the gun violence. They started getting more strategic about how they worked on it. And so there's been a lot of progress on policy. But no, this is as someone who I think you all has a perspective of I spend a lot of time thinking about how do we bring more people in. Mm-hmm. I'm not a moderate. I might consider myself a progressive, but I work at the state level. So that means in order to do good work, I work in a ton of red states or a ton, as well as the blue and purple. And so I do think about that a lot. And this issue, reproductive freedom, drives me nuts and also makes me so excited. And I just go back to those ballot measures, Kentucky, right where I'm located right now, Ohio, Kansas was no. And it's something that I feel as a woman, and a lot of other women know that most people agree on this issue. Like, this stuff is crazy what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But
Most
my
of
last
it- most of us
called
know-
healthcare.
Yeah.
It's healthcare.
And-
yeah, on the God issue and the religious issue, I would just add this quickly, which is like, first and foremost, important to note, like, Judaism has a whole different perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Judaism like centers and believes
Have we-
that the mother has a place in the equation and is actually very pro reproductive freedom.
That's right.
So I think one is to note, like, it depends what religion you're talking about.
Which I was
And
going to
then-
say, do you think that would create a battle if this became a Christo-fascist kind of nation where you're like,
I
well,
mean-
wait a minute, what about what the Muslim view is? What about
I
the
mean, if you're Jewish,
Yeah.
and that's a piece of your value system and belief, then others
Absolutely.
are like, there's a real conflict there. So one,
Yeah.
it depends like what perspective you're taking. Two, I would say, to sort of my short answer is like, then don't get one. Not to be
Right.
trite, but like,
Right.
don't get one. Like, in this
Yeah.
country, you're
But
not
that's called
allowed
a choice.
to impose religious beliefs. And the last thing I would say, hot take, I don't know how much time we have to talk about it, but for another time, is the issue of Catholic hospitals, which I don't know how
Yeah.
familiar you are with, which is that there has long been a fight between Catholic hospitals and not providing full reproductive care for those who need it.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective, and the perspective of a lot, is like, you are a physician and you are operating as a hospital and you're getting all of the tax benefits from
Yes.
being a hospital over and above the moral implications of taking the Hippocratic Oath. Like, you don't get to pick and choose
That's right.
how you treat people. I
Yeah.
deserve the care that anyone, so.
I'm
Can
so
we-
glad that you touched on that.
And I just want to point out that abortions after 9 months aren't happening, and if they are, it's called murder.
Yeah.
So just cut that. So with that, let's pivot into kind of wrapping this up. And how can people get more involved beyond just voting?
Yeah, this is this question is really central to why my co-founders and I started Frontline Repro Freedom Lab, or C3, and Action, or C4. We are all political professionals. We believe deeply in the political process, building movements, passing policy change over time. And so this election is so important. But because we're also movement builders, we know that every election is also an opportunity to build power, because after the election, what we need everyone to do is shift into the mode of caring about their state legislative fights in their state, caring about what's happening at Congress, right? So it's not over. We really need to avoid the pitfall of thinking, if we elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, that our work is done. Absolutely not. So that's part
Just
one.
Just beginning.
Right. And so I think that transition and engagement. And then two, the other thing I have to mention is just the other reason we really started this work together was because the access part is also really important. And for many, many years, we didn't pay much attention to it. But today, tonight, tomorrow morning, and next week, there are people waking up who need abortion care. And that's something we can actually solve right now. There are really tireless, except they're exhausted, frontline workers, abortion funds, who are using a very delicate but resilient web to get people the care they need. And they're mostly all volunteer, or either all volunteer or mostly volunteer. And they are in crisis mode. That's a solvable problem, right? So what I would say is, like, you've got to vote. You got to register to vote. You can go to voterepro.org and register. If you're not, you can check your registration, make a plan to vote. Research shows if you actually make a plan and say it out loud, you're going to do it. And then get your ballots in if you're in a state where you're going to mail in your ballot or have absentee voting. And then you can sign up at voterepro.org and we'll help pivot you to the fights that come after the election. So get ready to keep going. Find your state-based advocacy group. And then the third thing I would say is that access piece. If you're not giving $5 a month to an abortion fund in your state or region, I really recommend it. It's the difference maker. That $5 a month is $60 a year. That's childcare for someone who needs it. That's a train ticket. It's a meal card. So we have to both hold the fact that we're currently in crisis mode on the access front, and that we need to keep fighting for political change.
Love it.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
I'm so glad y'all are doing it, and I'm so glad you reached out to us and allowed us to be a part of this. I just, we've been talking, setting this up for seems like a month and a half. So it's just been great getting to know you and the ladies you work with.
Man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have an amazing team.
Got to give Livia a shout out. So you have a really good team of people around you, which I think is instrumental in making these things successful. So I guess the next question would be, what do you want to see happen next, regardless of who's in office, whether Kamala wins or Trump wins? What do you think needs to happen next?
Okay, well, let's put Trump. You told me not to, but I got to put Trump aside for a minute.
No, fine.
I got to think about that's we're talking very.
I don't blame you.
Sarah's burning down America if Trump's.
I tell you what, we'll have an emergency family meeting the next day, 10 a.m.
Got it.
Slot them in, and we'll talk about what we got to do next. Because we've been
there. It is.
There is a little bit of we've been there, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be bad, but we got a whole host of other problems from democracy. We got a ways to go. So I don't mean to be dismissive about that, but
no.
Okay. What is really interesting and probably important for people to hear is that even if Kamala and Tim are elected, obviously there's still work to do. So as she's talked about on the campaign trail, supporting the legislature in not just restoring Roe, but expanding access, right? Yeah. Something it's really important for people to hear is Roe was the floor, right? But a right is not a right unless you can access it. So we need to do better than we did with Roe, which I do not believe is asking too much. I think we have evolved and grown as a movement in a country. And so now's the time to get that codification into law. We need to end the Hyde Amendment, which has resulted in 1 in 4 poor women in this country being forced into pregnancy and forced birth. The Comstock Act, which we don't have time to get into, is just a mess and a threat. And so they need to end that as well. And then, so that's at the federal level. And then at the state level, we just need to keep at it. Movements are built over the course of decades. And so, as a organizer at heart, we have work for the rest of our lives on this. And so it's just one step at a time. But I will end with this optimistic note that this is such an incredibly enthusiastic and hopeful time, specifically on this issue. And voters are proving that this is not a party line issue, right? And that is really good. And that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I think we really, and I think seeing the about face that the Republican Party has done is proof that the numbers we're seeing are accurate, because they're clearly seeing the same numbers. And
it's not about face, man. That's a face plant. That's
but I'm just saying it's driving their message.
Yeah.
And they see it, we see it. And that's one of the reasons, like you said, I think there should be some excitement going into this because, like you said, I agree with you. I think that this is going to be something that really becomes a magnet for people to go to the voting booths, because this is serious. And I think there's going to be a lot of men out there like Ian and I, they're going to be voting, to thinking about the women in our lives, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our cousins, our nieces.
Everybody. Yes.
Everybody.
Yes. You're female.
Yeah. So
this election is about women. It's not about us this time.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Or I should say it really is.
What you all are doing at any time there's an unlikely ally, anytime dudes, men, boys are speaking up about it, it's extra powerful right now because it's so far and few between. So I think that's huge. Yeah. And then I'll just also say thank you to spending the time on it. We're super stoked about working with the creators, the online social media creators. It's kind of a whole new world in political advocacy on that front. And we're very excited to convert the folks we're working, I say that and I say build on the relationship we're having.
You've converted me.
No, but move them out of the election and really connect them.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
But move them and connect them with frontline groups in states, groups that are less resourced and wouldn't be able to have a creator program. So I think it's just very exciting. And I just want you all to know that your voices are 10 times as powerful because there's just so few men stepping up and talking about it. And you're just part of a really exciting time right now.
Thank you. That actually makes
you inspire me, Sarah.
Yeah,
that's all
for
I
real.
Can say.
So with that, is there anywhere that our listeners can go donate and support maybe your organization or a cause that you all lift up?
Yeah, you can go to Frontline Repro Freedom Action. It's a mouthful. And that'll connect you to an Act Blue page to support the work that we're doing right now during the election.
Awesome.
And then I'll send you, Ryan, a link to a page where they can donate to all of the ballot measures that are right now. And they need help right now. Actually, with the shift, Kamala coming into the race was a really good thing, but it shifted a lot of resources on the fundraising front. And so they actually need support so they can pick and choose the states or donate, have a donation split across all of them.
When you send it, I'll do a separate TikTok video.
Yeah.
For it.
Oh, that'd be great. And lastly, the last thing is, as I said before, but it's just so important, $5 a month, $10 a month to an abortion fund. You can go to the National Network of Abortion Funds and find your local fund and literally change someone's life.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
That's amazing. That really is.
So, you got anything, Ian?
No, Sarah, this has been really great. I really hope that we get to see you again before the election, and definitely jump back on, hold the mic.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks,
We don't even have to talk about abortions. We can talk about ranked choice voting.
Yeah, let's do it.
I feel like there's a couple episodes we could do together. So, but with that, I'm just going to echo what Ian said. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on the show again, allowing us to be a part of this discussion today. These are serious issues, and we need serious people tackling them. That's why I'm personally voting for Kamala Harris this election. And I personally hope you will too. But most importantly, go Google anything that you don't agree with or you don't think we're telling you the truth. Go Google us, check us, fact check us, because guess what? People who are telling the truth don't mind being fact checked. So go fact check us. Make sure you're informed before you go into the voting booth. As always, much love. Keep fighting. Stay safe out there. And whatever you do, make sure you get your ass out and vote. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Hold the Mic. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Download on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and wherever you stream your podcasts. Until next week.